All right, today we are tackling a challenge that, every senior architect knows all too well. How do you give your teams the full power of multi-cloud without absolutely burying them in its complexity? We're going to architect a solution that brings that simplicity and, more importantly, that speed back to your platform.
So you did it. You went multi-cloud for all the right reasons. Maybe it's for resilience, or better services, or just avoiding vendor lock-in. And on paper, that strategy looks fantastic. But for your application teams, the ones on the ground, it often just feels like a tangled mess. I mean, seriously, just ask your developers, what's their day-to-day actually like? Are they spending all their time juggling a bunch of different provider SDKs? Are they constantly on Stack Overflow, looking up how to do the exact same basic task, like just logging a message, but for 3 different clouds? That friction, that's a hidden tax on their productivity, and it adds up fast. Okay, let's look at this in practice, because this slide says it all. The task couldn't be simpler. Send a log message. But look at the code. On the AWS side, you're using put log events. Jump over to Google Cloud, and it's a completely different entry method with a different structure. It's the same goal, but it forces your developers to learn and maintain 2 totally different mental models. And what happens? Well, it's pretty predictable, right? You get cognitive overload, which just slows down development. But even worse, you get inconsistent implementations. One team sets up logging one way, another team does it differently, and suddenly you've got massive gaps in your observability. And that is an absolute nightmare for your ops team. This isn't a developer problem, it's a platform problem. So how do we fix this tangled mess? Well, the solution is a beautiful, powerful concept: abstraction. We're essentially going to build a universal remote for all of our cloud services. I mean, what is abstraction really? It's all about hiding the messy details. You don't need to know anything about the circuitry inside your TV to change the channel, right? You just press a button on the remote. That's exactly the kind of simple interface we want to give to our developers. And this right here, this is the guiding principle. This is the North Star. Let your app teams focus on what they do best, building incredible business logic. They shouldn't have to be experts in the subtle, annoying differences between every single cloud provider's API. Another way to think about it is like a universal power adapter. When you travel, you just want to plug your laptop in and have it work no matter what country you're in. Your internal SDK is that adapter. It's one simple, clean plug for the developer, and it handles all the complex voltage conversions on the other side. Okay, so what actually makes for a good internal SDK? One that people will actually use and not just work around. Well, it really comes down to a few key design principles. First up, it has to be intuitive. The function calls should be way cleaner and simpler than the native SDKs. Second, it needs to be opinionated. This is your chance, as the platform team, to bake in all the best practices for security, reliability, and observability by default. Third, make it extensible. You know you're probably going to add another cloud provider next year, so you might as well design for it now. And finally, and this is so important, it has to be well documented. Without clear examples and guides, even the most brilliant tool is just going to sit on a shelf. Yes, it's a maintenance overhead for your team, but the payoff and consistency is absolutely massive. All right, let's make this real. Let's see this thing in action. We'll take that same logging example from the beginning and see just how much our new SDK can transform the experience. We're going to walk through this in 3 simple steps. First, what the developer actually sees and writes. Second, what's happening inside the SDK's logic. And third, what the cloud provider on the other end actually receives. Okay, step 1. And this is the magic right here. Look at this. This is the developer's entire world now. One clean, descriptive line of code, SDK.log. It's readable, it expresses the intent of what they're doing, and it says nothing about a specific cloud. This is the simplicity we've been aiming for. So, where did all that ugly complexity go? Well, now it lives inside the SDK, where it's owned and managed by the platform team. Think of it like a little factory. The SDK checks its environment and just asks, hey, am I running in AWS? Cool, I'll build and use the CloudWatch client. Oh, I'm in GCP? No problem, I'll spin up the Google Login client. All that complexity is contained. The risk, of course, is creating a leaky abstraction where cloud details still bubble up, which is why disciplined design is so crucial here. And finally, step 3. This is where the SDK does all the heavy lifting. It takes that simple, beautiful SDK.log command and translates it into that messy provider-specific code we saw earlier.
It handles the authentication, it handles the formatting, it makes the final API call, and it's all completely hidden from the application developer.
So, why should you care about all this? Why go through the trouble? It's not just about writing pretty code. This is a huge strategic investment in your developer experience, and it has a massive return for your entire organization. And the results? I mean, they speak for themselves. On the left, when your teams are writing bespoke, multi-cloud code for every little thing, developer velocity is just dragging. But on the right, when they can just grab the SDK and use a simple abstraction, their velocity skyrockets. They can finally spend their brainpower on solving actual business problems, not cloud plumbing problems. And what you get is something incredibly powerful. One, unified, platform-approved pattern for all of your core services. One way to log, one way to emit metrics, one way to handle auth. This kind of consistency is the absolute bedrock of a scalable, well-governed, insane platform.
So let's just recap the payoff here, because it is huge. New engineers can onboard way faster because they're learning one SDK, not 3 different clouds. You see fewer bugs because all that complex, tricky code is centralized and owned by experts, your team. Your developers are just happier because they can actually focus on their main job. And for you as an architect, you get what you've always wanted, consistent observability and governance across every single application.
So really, the question isn't if you should be building abstractions, it's where you're going to start. We used logging as an example today, but what about metrics, authentication, service discovery? The principle is exactly the same. By architecting for simplicity, you unlock velocity. So what will you abstract next?